Okay, for everyone who's just coming in, feel free to sign in, and then we're going to get started. Okay, cool. So hi everyone, welcome to Promontory Investment Research first info session. We have our second one on Thursday. We're so excited that you guys are here today. We're hosting our winter recruitment. We're going to go in depth on who we are, what we do, our training program, as well as our research reports. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Aaron to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I'm a second year. I'm a math spec econ major. I'm from Southern California. I'm on the research committee. And then actually in December last year, I walked around Hyde Park looking for maps for like 5 hours. I thought I'd take like 20 minutes, but then I was just wasting an entire afternoon looking for maps. I found them though in the Hyatt. Go to the Hyatt if you want maps.
Hey guys, I'm Victoria. I'm a third year. I'm double majoring in business economics with environmental studies. I'm from Chicago. I'm the president of Promontory. And a fun fact about me is I competed on a national karate team prior to COVID.
Hey guys, I'm Akshat. I'm a third year econ stat major from the Bay Area. I joined Promontory first year, first quarter. So I've been with the club for a little over 2 years now, but I'm the head of education, which basically means that I'm running the basic financial training program. And my fun fact is I've had every drink at Phil's, including the ones on their secret menu. So I'm a little addicted to coffee, but it's fine.
So we wanted to show you guys where research analysts and alumni have worked. Although we're not career oriented, we thought that this would give you a good idea of where we go. So these are a few of our background. Again, our analysts go absolutely everywhere. They can go into research, academics, or finance. Really, we pride ourselves on our huge wide variety of backgrounds. Okay, so a little bit about ourselves. So what does Promontory do? So we conduct fundamental research on companies that we're interested in. We understand their analyses. We perform quarterly publications. Our analysts actually have tangible reports and journals, and you can find them on our website. And why do we do this? So we have a threefold mission. First, to democratize knowledge, to teach an intellectual approach, and build a community. How have we done this? Well, to democratize knowledge, we host external events, launch parties where we show our publications, and we recently just published our Promontory Web, which we'll go into further later. To teach an intellectual approach, you'll get a hands-on experience of actually building your own report through our research analyst program. And lastly, to build a community, we pride ourselves on our community. We host a lot of internal events and speakers and just bonding, as well as a whole mentorship program. How do we do it? So you'll work with our BFT education program, and through that, you'll learn a lot of analysis skills and be able to formulate your own report, and then go into the research analyst where you'll actually understand how to have a real hands-on experience writing through the report with your team. And then we're super open-minded. We cater to all interests and careers. We don't have one sole focus. We truly just want to spread knowledge and teach you guys. I'm gonna hand it off to
Cool. Yeah, so let's talk about what investment research actually is. Essentially, it's identifying investment opportunities based on various strategies. And so it essentially becomes a question of price versus value. There's technical analysis, which is more using financial analysis that uses patterns in market data to essentially identify trends and make predictions. So essentially what's happening is that you're using a combination of statistical techniques and programming to develop algorithms that help investors make short-term gains by analyzing price movements. So this is not what we do. This is, these are like other clubs that handle this kind of stuff. But Promontory deals with fundamental analysis, where we're analyzing a company's growth opportunities, their competitive strategies, financial performance to determine if the company is intrinsically a good investment. And so this is more of a measure of value that generally correlates more to long-term performance. And so both are equally valid and represent different ways for investors to make gains in the market, but ultimately it just depends on what side of investing you're more interested in. So equity research is equally important to both the sell side and then buy side as well. So with sell side analysts, essentially what's happening is that you're selling your equity research to different investment banks or consulting firms. And so this research is generally a lot more unbiased because you're not using this internally. Buy side research is generally used by hedge funds, pension funds, asset managers, and so they don't really publish their reports, but this research is essentially used internally to help decide the firm's portfolio. So equity research has a wide range of applications, and generally the skills that you gain are pretty applicable to a lot of fields. So, going more into depth for fundamental analysis, we just talked about what investment research is, why it exists, but I think it would be helpful to kind of talk about what makes up investment research. So essentially we're acting as analysts and our work can be broken up into 6 parts. So I'll give you a little bit of an example with a hypothetical process with Facebook. So first, it's a good idea to research the industry, research what the economy looks like. For Facebook, that'll be analyzing the social media and the technology space. So we'll look at demographics, how the environment is changing, what the average costs are, how common internet access is, et cetera. Basically, to kind of determine how attractive the industry actually is. After this, we'll look at the business itself. So industry dynamics are important, but we're not investing in the industry as a whole. We're investing in the company specifically. So we look at how the company plays a role in the industry, right? We look at their financial statements, what their outlook is, how effective their subsidiaries might be. So for example, Facebook owns Instagram and WhatsApp. So, we might analyze, how those companies are doing as well. And so this fundamental analysis is basically focusing on the specific business factors that'll drive the share price into the future. And this is something that will focus a lot in our financial training program, where we teach you the tools and techniques to actually be able to conduct this fundamental analysis. And after doing this research, we want to put that together into an investment thesis. So this is essentially a succinct summary of our industry and our company specific analysis, and essentially details why or why not we think that this company is a good investment. I think it's also important to note that a good investment doesn't necessarily mean it's a good company. And this is something that we cover a lot in our course. And based on the company specific factors and industry analysis, we'll also look to project the financial statements into the future. So this is using some kind of like discounted cash flow analysis or a comparable companies model to actually value the company and help us identify what a good price is for the investment. And so the idea there is that this analysis helps us come up with a valuation for the company that we can compare to the current price. And if the current price, based on that, we can issue a rating, which is like buying or holding or selling it. And so this valuation kind of influences our thesis. And so this is the model that we generally teach both our new recruits and our research analysts to follow. As you can tell, this is a very logical framework that we try to instill through our reports. And then also to go a little bit into what investment banks do, because this is the primary client for our sell side research. One important note here is that investment banking is not the same as investing. Investment banking essentially provides financial advisory to companies, and what that looks like is first M&A advisory, right? So if 2 companies want to merge, you would help them, provide advice in terms of negotiating the transaction, helping identify clients, or even helping them raise money. And so, you get a fee of whatever that transaction value was. So going back to our example with Facebook, like Facebook bought WhatsApp for, I think around like $19 billion. So ultimately an investment bank was what helped put together that transaction. And then they also, run for sale research operations. And while this doesn't really generate income, there's, this is like, another application for a sell side equity research. And I think if you look at like the diagram here on the right, with JP Morgan, you see that investment banking is a pretty big part of their business. Okay, cool. So now I kind of want to take this time to talk about an interesting topic. And a lot of what Promontory is not just doing investment research on specific companies, but also being able to kind of learn about what investing looks like in a lot of different interesting scenarios. And so a lot of times we'll have different research analysts or different board members present topics and present presentations on things that they think are interesting and related to investing. And over time, with enough presentations, you kind of develop the tools and develop this framework for understanding investing in all of its different capacities. So I think one especially relevant case study is with black swan investing. So black swan events are essentially characterized by two things, right? Like first, they're unpredictable, meaning that they're beyond normal expectations, so that it's so rare that even the possibility that it might occur is unknown. And so essentially, this takes advantage of psychological biases that make people individually and collectively blind to the uncertainty and unaware of the massive role of the rare event in historical affairs. And so a lot of times you have standard tools like probability or using like prediction algorithms that don't really apply because they depend on a large population or past sample sizes that aren't really available for these rare events. And the other thing is that they have to be catastrophic, right? Their consequences can't be ignored, not necessarily company specific, and they can either be positive or negative. So I'm going to give two examples of this that are relatively straightforward and pretty obvious, just to kind of give you an understanding of what that looks like. But first, I want to cover that like the main characterization is that black swan events are what we call retroactively obvious, meaning that after the event happens, it's rationalized, meaning that people are like, yes, of course this is happening. Of course this is something that we could have predicted based on stuff that we already knew that happened in the past. So essentially what's happening here is that a black swan event should be considered virtually impossible, but it's well within the possibility, like the probability distribution when you consider historical data. So one really good example of this is the housing bubble and bust that happened like around a decade ago. So in the lead up to 2006, a lot of Americans assumed that nominal housing prices, even if they slowed down, would not actually fall, right? Especially since housing prices grew by nearly 100%. There was expectations of even faster growth in real estate prices, and basically what was going around was a lot of consumers were like, a lot of investors were like, yes, housing prices don't fall because they've never had before. And because of this, needless to say, like many decisions would have been made very differently, whether by indebted homeowners or leveraged bank executives, if they thought that there was a non-negligible chance of an outright decline. So, as of 2006, we move on to the next slide. 30 years of housing prices seem to show a clear upward trend, right? If you look at this data, just between like 2006 and the 30 years prior, right? There's a very clear upward trend, only a slight dip, which is what a lot of investors kind of use to justify that housing prices won't necessarily fall. But on the next slide, we look at historical data, right? Looking at over 100 years of data showed that the last decade was actually an aberration, where housing prices can fall even in nominal terms, and in real terms they tend to revert back to their 1950 to 1975 level. And the other evidence that was there was that housing prices had also fallen in other countries. And so essentially the core argument that was made was that this hasn't, like the housing crash hasn't happened before and is very unlikely. But it doesn't make any sense because the data was there, but people either didn't think of this as something that could happen, or they just thought it was irrelevant. And so black swan events, again, are something that could be very catastrophic. And the second example is coronavirus. And it's a little bit ironic actually, because this was, black swan events were something that we talked about back in January and February, around like a month or two before this pandemic actually happened. But again, like this is due to the common belief that global pandemics won't suddenly happen, right? And I don't really need to explain the impact and the consequences there, right? Because we've seen the stock market crash, like one of the largest crashes that's been recorded. But the thing is, again, we had past data here. We had the SARS virus, we had H1N1 influenza, we had Ebola. So clearly, this is something that has happened in the past, but or like the capacity for this is definitely there. We just never, actually reacted to this. And so the key is a lot of times people tend to overreact, right? They tend to overreact and either like sell their stocks, and because of this, the market generally crashes, right? But the key is that the market will always recover. And this is a principle that's really important, because these black swan events essentially create this potential for upside. Especially because one thing that we really like to talk about is value investing. But this is kind of like the main idea that we like to talk about.
Right. So now I'm going to talk about what the RAs actually do in the club. On the next slide, there's an example of one of the reports that we have published. It's on Zillow. You can see like the entire outline that Akshat has laid out is on there. So there's an investment overview, a company overview, industry overview. And then on the next slide, there are investment theses and valuations. And you can see that all this stuff is very dense, but we also try to keep it like very manageable to read. Like we try to avoid financial jargon because we're trying to like spread knowledge, democratize this stuff. Um, so then we're trying to like simplify all this down into things that everybody can understand. And I think one of the really cool things about Promontory is that we actually get to study like businesses that kind of affect our everyday lives, but that we don't really think about that often. Like I don't think prior to like knowing that this existed, I didn't really think about how Zillow operated as a company. But like now I kind of looking into the company a bit, you kind of understand what the company does, how it operates, like what it actually prioritizes and thinks is important about itself. On the next slide, I believe we have the structure of the club. So then you can see that our RAs are actually right in the center of that diagram. That's because we pride ourselves on being a very flat organization. We pride ourselves on being very like close knit. We're a small group that like knows everybody, where everybody knows everybody else very well. We have like a bunch of social events that go between us. Obviously, that's been a bit harder because of COVID, but but like we're still trying to maintain that, and we're still keeping like the entire club close. Um, and how this works is basically every quarter the RAs get into pods, and pods of like 3 to 5 people, and they're assigned. You guys get to choose a company to work on. So then you guys submit like maybe a little survey saying what industries you're into. We put you guys into pods, and then after that, you guys choose companies to work on. Um, and like throughout the quarter you build upon all the research that you've done to finally create that published report at the end. And the role of the research committee in the middle of all this is basically just to serve as a sounding board for the pods. We have like weekly office hours where we keep up on your progress. We kind of suggest new ways for you guys to go. We think about like, yeah, basically we think about the company and where it could go. And yeah, if you look at like what happened last year on the next slide, basically we select, yeah, we have meetings. We select 3 of the reports every quarter to publish. Last quarter we actually didn't like have a printed edition because of COVID, but usually every year we have like a printed edition. We have a launch party where everybody gets a copy of it to look at and to keep. And it's really cool just to get to see your work like actually in a publication in front of you physically.
All right, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about the new recruit track, and this is essentially, what all members have to go through when they first join the club. So, BFT covers a lot of different topics, right? We cover several technical concepts in accounting and valuation, how to basically qualitatively analyze a company, but also how to value a company and how to basically have all of these concepts that you can use to analyze a company. But even beyond that, we guide you through the process of writing your own equity research report. So, the goal of this program isn't, to see if you can learn the entirety of accounting and valuation concepts in this time. It's also to introduce these concepts to you and give you the tools to analyze companies as a research analyst. And ultimately it takes time for these concepts to sink in. And during BFT, you're ultimately only going to gain an initial grasp on them through, whether it be lectures or homework or quizzes, but the concepts really start to connect a lot more fluidly as you begin writing more equity research reports. And so because of this, we really care a lot about the effort you put in and your participation. So, this is definitely something that we look for in our applicants to, make sure they have dedication, they're able to learn. But yeah, I think these are probably like the most important traits that we look for. But even moving on to like the next slide, right? You can see how comprehensive BFT really is because on the technical side, we have content with weekly lectures and a textbook that's really geared towards topics in accounting and valuation. But we also reinforce that through assignments and quizzes just to kind of make sure that you're understanding the material and you're really grasping it. But I think the more important aspect of BFT is really the equity research training that we get, that we provide. you're basically through the capstone project writing your own equity research report from scratch. You're not kind of just sitting there listening to a lecture and listening to people just talk about miscellaneous concepts in accounting evaluation, but you're actually writing your own report and actually doing your own work. And I think personally for me, it was really cool back when I first joined the club to have spent an entire quarter just learning anything and everything about accounting and valuation, and actually being able to apply that to write my own report. And even though the report wasn't really anything too sophisticated, I think it definitely gave me the initial chance to learn. And over many quarters, I was able to really learn more and more about equity research. And I think this is really hammered down through our performance review project, right? Where you are essentially looking at past reports that have been written and identifying their strengths and shortcomings. And this is also a really great opportunity just because you're working with RAs that already have a significant amount of experience with equity research, and you get the chance to see how they think about companies, how they think about reports, and how they think about what their past investment thesis points were, and really being able to see how those play out. And I think it's definitely a really valuable opportunity. Basically, just learning from your past mistakes and any of your predictions that might have been right in the past. And so the next slide, I think this kind of shows what our reports look like. So as you can see, it takes an incredible amount of work, but once you finish it, I think it's just it's a different sense where you are truly impressed by the work that you've put in. And I think especially each quarter we see the next class of NRs put in even more and more effort, and it's headed in a really great direction.
I would like to emphasize that you do not need any prior knowledge coming into this. Like, it looks a lot overwhelming, but we really truly teach you the fundamentals in order for you to accomplish all of this. So you do not need to have any prior knowledge before.
Yeah, and actually the reason I put this report in here is because this report was written by someone who had absolutely no experience with equity research, never knew anything about finance or business or anything. And this person basically went from not knowing anything to writing I think one of the best reports from our NR class last quarter.
With that, I'm going to talk about our club-wide events, starting with our external events. So we've talked a little bit about our launch parties. This normally would happen on the 10th week of each quarter. And it's a big deal for us because all of our hard work and dedication is put into this publication, which is printed for everyone to see. It's open to everyone on campus community, and we generally cater. It's just a really exciting, fun time. We do host external speaker events. Previously, we hosted Myron Scholes and John Cochran. Prior to that, we had booth professor Amir Sufi. And again, all of our events are always catered. We try to have some fun activities as well. We also have corporate partnerships. This is not to force anyone to go into finance or banking or whatever it is. It is truly just to show our members a wide variety of opportunities that there are, to teach them about the recruiting process, their information sessions, give them the opportunity to resume drop, and just learn about the company and everything that's out there. So here are a few companies on the right that we have hosted before. And this is not just exclusive to Promontory. We do sometimes have them externally as well. Here are some pictures of some of the events that we've hosted internally. Prior to COVID, we were going out to restaurants, hanging out at the Point, going to Chinatown, hanging out at people's apartments. But now, obviously, that's not the case. We do try to do hangouts outside with masks, but a lot of our games are virtual, and we're trying to start up a new pod tournament this quarter.
Yeah, the board has put in a significant amount of work into making sure that we still keep that community vibe, especially when things are virtually. But I think the fact that every single person on the board is putting in as much work as possible to kind of ensure that that community exists, I think really unique, and it's something that you won't really see anywhere else.
I'm going to go into our D&I efforts. So first, with democratizing knowledge, we understand not everyone may have previous background in equity research or finance in general. So regardless if you are in Promontory or not, we want these resources to be open to everyone. We believe that everyone should have the ability to access them. So That's why we host external speakers, the quarterly launch party where you can read our reports. And most recently, we published the Promontory Bible, which is the textbook that the BFT training students go through. It's super in depth. It was written by our past board members. I believe we're the only RSO on campus that has a student written actual textbook for our group. And we decided to publish this to put forth our mission. On the recruiting aspect of it, we decided to get rid of the resume requirement. This is because we want to increase accessibility for inexperienced applicants. It shows us to form opinions on candidates based on how they present themselves rather than on their previous backgrounds or internships. Um, we don't ask any hard technicals. We don't care if you know all the technicals on the planet or no technicals. We truly just care about your interests, your dedication, your enthusiasm, and your communication skills. We really value earnesty is a big part of who we are. And lastly, we decided that this has been a constant theme that we've used throughout all of our recruiting cycles, that no one on the board can interview if they know you personally. This is to get rid of any biases that people may have of each other, and only those people that interview you have the say in giving input on you as a candidate. So again, if someone knows you personally, they cannot interview you. We really genuinely want to make it an even playing field for absolutely everyone who's applying. Okay, so probably why you guys are all here to learn about our recruiting process. So first is our written application. We're really just gauging why are you applying, trying to understand the cultural background fit, and just trying to see how you think. If you look at our application questions, they're supposed to be fun and enjoyable to write and not boring. This is due Sunday, January 17th at noon, not at midnight. It is due at noon. And then we head on to first rounds, which will be a 2-on-1 interview. We're looking mostly for behavioral fit and the latter part, business intuition. Again, that is not technical based. This is truly just trying to understand how you think on your feet. We're just trying to get to see you and how you speak and everything. So this is truly not to test you on hard technical skills. This will happen through the 19th and 22nd. And then we have second rounds, which will be a 3-on-1 interview. So here we will propose a research topic in which you will prepare a mini presentation. Majority of that interview will be you presenting to us and answering our questions. We will send you the topic ahead of time, and you will have a day to prepare for it. This interview will happen on the 24th. So who we are, we like to use this throughout our info sessions, and this has been used since the club has been founded. We like to say that the makeup of our club is earnesty, we're chill, we're not hardos, we really just try to have fun together and enjoy what we do. And lastly, you see that the 110% that we are tryhards. Like a lot of you Chicago students, we're just trying to have fun with what we do while producing good work.
I really want to emphasize this because I think really what we're looking to see is that we want someone who's there to join our community and actually be active. We also want people who are teachable, right? And this is something that you'll hear, 100 times over at all these club info sessions. But I think it's really true because, we're gauging personality fit. And if honestly you're someone that we feel can join our community, I think we would love to have you.
Yeah, we genuinely truly value fit, because what comes down to it is we're going to be working together for the rest of your time at U Chicago, and so we're going to be hanging out and everything, so we truly value fit. So what we offer you. So here are a few things that I listed that we believe we offer you. So one, a well-rounded understanding of different industries and companies, an immediate applicability to required skill set, an opportunity to help us grow as an RSO, a diversity of career mentors, a close-knit community. Again, we're growing our alumni base, and honestly, they're always there to help us out whenever we need. Our alumni go absolutely everywhere, so it's nice to have a good understanding of different opportunities that are out there. If you have any questions for us, you can contact us on our Facebook page or Gmail. And our application is due at noon this Sunday. Before we end, I want to show you some pictures of our bonding events. um, these are some pictures that we took from previous quarters. This Saturday, we have our meet and greet from 2 to 3 p.m. Central. This is meant for you to meet our RAs on a more one-on-one basis. We're going to be going to breakout rooms so you can really get to talk to them, ask any questions like serious ones if you're really considering why or why not to join Promontory. We really highly encourage you to attend this meet and greet because these RAs are more than willing to speak with you and want to help you. Again, our application is due noon on Sunday. That's the link. And with that, I want to hand it over to Max, who is our head of our operations. He's going to lead our RA panel.
All right, we have here a great group of RAs. They sort of represent different years, different interests, just generally like the full range of people that all find a promontory to be home. So I might as well just have everyone introduce themselves, say what year you are, what your major is, and when you joined promontory. I guess I'll call on someone. So Sparsh, how about you take us off?
Yeah. So I'm Sparsh. I'm a second year econ and poli-sci major. I joined Promontory fall of my first year, so last year.
You guys, everyone just sort of like jump in. I mean, I feel weird like calling on people like a teacher, so just jump in. It's fine if you really like, talk over each other.
My name is Victor. I'm a second year, also studying econ, potentially something like English too. I joined winter of my first year.
Hey guys, I'm Matt.
I'm
my third year.
Oh, sorry. You can go.
I think it was bound to happen sooner or later. So, but yeah, I'm a third year. I'm studying economics and excited to meet you all.
First year, I'm studying econ data science, and I joined this past fall, obviously.
All right. Yeah, sorry. I guess that maybe we should just do calling. Anyway, so you can see from that really we cater to a group of people with really diverse interests, diverse majors. We're not just for people who are exclusively interested in finance, although if that is really your main interest, we definitely have a lot to offer. So how about the second question I have for you guys is what's something interesting you learned about a company that you were researching? And we can just go in the same order. So Sparsh, have you take it away?
Yeah, I'll go. I think one interesting thing I learned was like I came into Promontory like mainly focused in like economic policy, government, things like that. So I did my first equity report on BP, like the oil company, just because I thought that like oil plays a really important kind of role in like the global economy and all these things. So just learning just through doing like research about BP, other oil companies, that industry in general, I just kind of learned a lot about how like oil influences global politics and power relations and things like that. So that was like a really cool thing for me to learn because that's kind of my interest. So yeah.
Yeah, so coming into Promontory, I was also pretty, like I knew, econ was like a fringe interest, but not really anything business related. And so for my first, like when I finished BFT, the company I researched was Chipotle. And something interesting I learned about them was that the reason why their stock price does so well, even though, they're not represented, like the ticker only represents one single company as opposed to some other competitors being conglomerates, is that they really pioneered like the fast casual dining experience. Whereas, you go into a store, it looks pretty clean. You get into a line, all the food looks pretty fresh, and you're really able to make your own like food selection. That's pretty key to their success. And also they're able to expedite their online orders because they have a dedicated line and kitchen just to process those orders. And when the Black Swan event happened in COVID, they were really able to soar. So Unfortunately, I didn't put my money where my mouth was, and I didn't buy stock early enough. But if I did, I'd be pretty rich right now.
And then Madeline and Matthew, do you guys want to also add in?
Sure. I did I think my most interesting report was a quick one on a small little company, like micro cap, called Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. Ticker is RMCF, but they make chocolates, which are like See's candies, but more purple and less well known. I thought it was interesting because I kind of wanted to compare the way that they did business, which is through a franchise model, with their larger competitor, See's Candies, which is of course owned by Berkshire Hathaway. I think it's an interesting space, and funnily enough, I started doing that, or we did the project right before COVID hit. So I've been kind of monitoring the stock, and it's been interesting to see how my predictions have held up for that company in the months since.
Last quarter, I did a report on Crown Castle International, which basically owns a ton of towers and small cells, which is like some sort of fiber capability for like 5G and other wireless carriers across the United States. And obviously, I honestly like did not understand what the company did beforehand. And after having done the research report, not only did I understand the company, but I realized some of the shortcomings in how I viewed that the stock market evaluated the price when I did like my DCF and when I evaluated the model, which like I said, like I didn't know how to do that at all before doing Promontory, before doing BFT. So like whatever knowledge I had beforehand was nothing compared to like where I feel like I am now. And so after I realized that I felt like the stock was overvalued. And so I actually did a short of the stock and like made money within a few weeks. So I was actually pretty impressed with how my report actually ended up panning out.
Yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. I guess so. The final two questions we have are what's the thing you most enjoy about Promontory, and what advice do you give prospective applicants? But I will say to everyone in this meeting, feel free to raise your hand or to put in the chat if you have any questions that you want to ask the RAs right now as well.
Should I go first? Should I answer both of them right now, or are we going to take two turns?
I don't know, like up to you, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to answer both of them. So the first one, in terms of like what I like the most, it's genuinely just like it's obviously like the community, but it's even more specifically like the board members we have right now. Like it is like unheard of. Like for example, like over the break, like Victoria sent me a message like checking up on me and asking to hang out, which is like pretty crazy. Just like the president of most RSOs like won't even know your name usually. So like things like that are cool. Or like Akshat like frequently like he's like taking me out for dinner and like giving me life advice and all this kind of stuff. So those are just things that you won't find on other RSOs, like especially like finance RSOs. So that's like a really, really cool thing. And then in terms of like advice, I think would just be I think actually write about what you're interested in. Like there's no need to like talk about how you were like started like trading when you're like 15 years old. Like that's boring and stupid. And like it's better to be like a real person who's interested in things. Like I barely like I don't like I'm not even like a traditional finance person, and this RSO has still been like really, really useful for me. So it's like totally okay to have like diverse interests and still apply and be open about those interests as long as you like see value in Promontory. So there's no reason like to be one of the like 70 people who says the same thing about like business or something. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess my answer would be pretty similar for the first question. I think because Promontory is a lot smaller. I mean, I'm not sure what the sizes of other clubs are on campus, but it does seem a lot more contained. So you get a lot of valuable face time with like board members and research committee, which is really helpful. I know like, Max and I are both currently going through recruiting, and I'm sure it'll be really helpful to be able to ask people like Victoria and Akshat, and just older members who've already gone through the process, what it's like. So yeah, for the first part, I mean, obviously that's not to say that you have to go through the same sort of recruiting process we are now, but if like you want to know what the best classes to take are, down the line, they'd still be really valuable resource. And as far as like advice for application goes, I actually applied 2 times to Promontory. I applied fall and winter of my first year. Um, and I talked to James, who is also, in leadership in the club, about why I wasn't able to get in the first time. And it was because I wasn't really sure like what made Promontory different from other clubs. And so that was a sort of turnoff for the people interviewing, because they really want to be able to see like why Promontory is unique to you and what specifically you can get out of it and what you can bring to the table. So yeah, like be able to identify specifically why you want to join Promontory, and don't like give the same generic answer you give to like, the Blue Chips or Rune Capital or all these other clubs. So yeah, that's like my main piece of advice.
And then, yeah, Matthew or Madeline, do you guys want to finish up with this?
Sure. I think my advice for Promontory is my experience was I applied a little later in second year. I think the last quarter I could have possibly done it. So to those of you who are second years in your winter quarter that are thinking of applying, feel free to reach out. But one thing that I'd stress is, just be yourself during the interview process and kind of just be personal and relatable. I think, as we've all said, this is a big theme for this club. And one thing that really sets Promontory apart is just you won't find any or is among the RA personnel, there's no real factionalism or weird drama or anything like that. For the most part, everyone's just kind of helping each other. So feel free to ask anyone anything.
To join Promontory, or why even why I think that I may have really been attracted to the club initially in my fall was just because everyone I met just seemed very genuine and collaborative and friendly. And I feel like there is that stereotype in finance, especially, as a female, not seeing a lot of people like me, or seeing just like a more male dominated or a little scary kind of culture. And so I didn't feel that at all. And I'm not saying that other clubs have that. I'm just saying Promontory just seems so welcoming and really exciting and collaborative, and it's just a very special place that seemed to prioritize not just obviously career stuff, but also just learning purely. So that would be my kind of advice for how to approach I guess the application, also just the club itself.
And all of
Sorry.
all these RAs joined here out of their own volition. They're all super nice and came voluntarily to speak with you guys because we genuinely want to hear from you guys and want to help you guys through the process. As you can tell, all of our RAs are super, super, super nice and amazing. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, just speak up, or type it in the chat. We're here to answer your questions. Yeah, so generally for the BFT training, Akshat, do you want to go over that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the schedule for BFT, what that kind of looks like is you have a weekly lecture. It's around an hour and a half to 2 hours every week. And then outside of that, you're spending most of the time, working on assignments, or just, working on your equity research report. But in terms of on our end, what you're kind of responsible to show up for is those lectures. We have a discussion section in which we kind of talk about the different homework and quiz problems to kind of give you better color on the different topics that we've been covering. And we also have, obviously office hours that are there to provide you with plenty of support. So research committee and the rest of the board is always there to help you answer any questions, or whether it's about, the report or any of the stuff that you've been studying. But I would say it's around 4 to 5 hours a week.
And Madeline can speak a little bit more to that because she just went through BFT.
It was honestly pretty manageable. I think like difficult for me was just because it was my first quarter and everything is online. You know, it is a bit of an adjustment. But anytime I had an issue with something we were learning in our Zoom lectures, like I immediately reached out to someone or someone reached out to me, or I went to an office hours and it was cleared up. So that was really helpful. And I think in terms of the capstone report, like I think I spent a little too much time on it in comparison with like how much time I should have spent on some of my finals. But I thought it was like actually very manageable and perfectly like built up to from the stuff that I learned from the quarter already. So everything was like really manageable and easy to understand. And like I said, like because it is such a collaborative culture, if you ever had questions, if I ever like couldn't figure something out, I could message someone, they would message me. Like I remember I called I called this girl Cody, who's my mentor, who's a second year, and I was like, I literally have no idea what I'm doing wrong. And I like FaceTimed her and showed her what my Excel spreadsheet looked like, and she was like, "Oh, this is how you do it." And so I ended up fixing the problem, and it was really easy from there.
Yeah, amazing. And as Madeline mentioned, we do have a mentorship program where you'll get paired with someone who's either a year above you or 2 years above you. And this is truly just to help you throughout your process through BFT. I want to make sure I answer Nikhil's question. Do members tend to stay involved for their 4 years at U Chicago? That is the hope, because our community is super tight knit and we our Promontory is a relatively small organization. We do try to make sure everyone stays on for all 4 years. Obviously, if there's other commitments or we are extremely flexible, or if you happen to not like us, you can drop. But historically, all of our members have stayed with us all 4 years.
And honestly, I would say that this is probably the best part about this club because you see a lot of times in other like finance or consulting RSOs that people spend their first 2 years in the club and then they kind of drop after they get their job. But I think with Promontory, right, like the main purpose isn't necessarily like obviously the main purpose is to learn about equity research, but the main purpose isn't to just get a job with this club, right? It's more of a community that you're joining, and we have ways for everyone to stay involved, right? We have like whether it's joining leadership, or even informally being a mentor to a lot of the like first or second years, or even just casually if you don't want to write a report and you kind of want to be part of the social events and be part of like our engagement. That's also a really great opportunity. And we see a lot of RAs actually that once they've kind of written enough research reports and they've really gotten the hang of it, we actually give them the opportunity to write their own report on any investing related topic. And it's more of a academic report that allows them to pursue different topics that they're more interested in. So one of our past members, I think this is a report that like many people have read about, but she basically wrote about how game theory is applied to M&A, and this is something that she found really interesting, and honestly everyone in the club found really interesting. And I think that really goes to show that it's not just about learning how to analyze companies and then calling it a day after 2 years, but it's really about being part of a community.
And then are the lectures synchronous or are they recorded just in case of time conflict? So we send out an initial form to try to clear up any time conflicts. But if someone, let's say, is in a different part of the world and that time commitment is just like too far distance, we do sometimes record our lectures. And Akshat, for BFT, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, like, I will be recording some of the lectures, but I think BFT goes more beyond that, right? Like in like the 1.5 2 hours every week, it's not just people standing up and talking about different equity research topics. It's actually very interactive, and it's basically meant to kind of make you think on your feet. And because of that, it's hard if you have to miss a lecture here and there. But obviously we're very flexible and we're definitely willing to work with you if there is some kind of time conflict that's unavoidable.
Definitely. We're here to support you throughout the whole process. Any last questions? Okay, well, Thank you everyone for coming. Again, our application is due Sunday at noon. Please come to our meet and greet. We'd love to have you there. And yeah, we'll look forward to reading your applications. Thank you guys.
Also, if you have any questions in like the next week, or just feel free to reach out to any RAs, any board members. We're more than happy to answer your questions. Yeah, but yeah, thanks for coming, guys.